The Devil's Soul, Chapter 9, Section 1, Phoenix, 1941. Fedor hesitated, steps faltering. Why would I ask you that? He stopped, his gaze fixed on her. Because I do. Sometimes I wonder if he hears me at all. If maybe I've done something he can't forgive. Her face twisted briefly, a shadow of emotion quickly suppressed. God forgives everything, she said. But her voice was brittle. It's people who don't. He didn't press her further, but his mood and affect afterwards perhaps showed that these words must have lingered longer than usual. God tests us, she said another evening, as they stood at the edge of a dry canal, the sunset painting the horizon orange and pink. But I don't think he expects us to have all the answers. Sometimes faith is just trusting that we'll figure it out along the way. Fedor found himself drawn to her strength and her ability to balance conviction with compassion, as he would later gush. Maybe despite hints of energies contrary in nature flowing below the surface, that he must have also perceived. By the time of their second spring together, their conversations appeared to have deepened into something more. When he proposed during a picnic beneath a mesquite tree outside the city, she accepted, seemingly without any hesitation. The bright future also shadowed. Chapter 9, Section 2, Upper Darby, 1996. Paisley. She was the prototype, the template. Every other girl he fell in love with after her owed something to her or resembled her. Had he chosen her and the several that followed based on some set of preferences already developed? Or did her taking of his virginity set her type in stone for the decades that followed and the immediate years to come? Back in high school, at a mutual friend's house, Paisley, while giving him a hug, had slipped her hands up the bottom of his shirt and began to dig her manicured nails into his back. The sensation was scintillating, barely painful at all, as the psychological value of the act instantly must have sent endorphins coursing through him. Later, he wore these nail marks with pride, describing them to his friends boastfully, knowing, even as a virgin, this was something women did to men if the men did them good. He didn't remember the next time he saw her. It had to be early 96 after he returned from Dartmouth to begin his transformation into a person who would never again be the nice guy. He would remember later spending many minutes in front of the mirror each day, observing his already changing face, the baby fat vanishing, a leaner, meaner face emerging. It reflected his constant socializing and the cigarettes he had begun smoking, their effect on his appetite and thus weight. Beyond that, he began to see how his inner attitudes and thoughts could be embodied in the way his face looked. You can see in pictures from high school how his timid, thoughtful face looked, pale and wan, a scholar or a poet doomed to early death. Then he had for his yearbook photo put his chin slightly out and only barely turned his mouth into a line, not even quite a grin. This was the kind of look he continued to practice. After high school, he said it would only work, that is, be a consistent image he could project out into the world if he truly embraced the attitudes that created the image. An evil smirk is what crystallized, the sense that no sentimentality or morality or even normal sadness could deflate a wild, wonderful glee of being young, alive, and free of any other pressure other than his own impetus to gain pleasure. The swagger, this I don't give an F attitude seemed to attract Paisley. And thus he was initiated into manhood right before his 19th birthday after enjoying a blustery spring day, March 1996, the season of the ram. Chapter 9, Section 3, Upper Darby, 1996, written in 2012. Eli. Paisley and I went on dates before it happened. Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler, sitting in the movie theater together quietly. Verbal foreplay postponed in the days when suburban theaters were still quiet and absent the light from cell phone screens. Afterwards, Paisley gave a ride to a black kid whose car had broken down. This was endearing. Some days after, we went to New Hope, PA, a quaint New Agey town up the Delaware River, home to hippie artists and queer bourgeois. In a bookstore, she ripped out of a book a poem I love by Ezra Pound on immorality. I was shocked but invigorated by her vandalism, theft. We ate at a restaurant and went home. I remember the smell of strawberry conditioner wafting off of her hair as we flew down 95 South past decaying row homes, me feeling cozy in my Michigan sweatshirt, the windows cracked to let out our Marlboro menthol smoke. We both smoked the same brand. Her teeth were already a slight green at 19 from several years of the habit. Her hazel eyes, by contrast, slightly mocked, slightly invited. Her charm summed up in this contradictory impression she gave. Come get me, honey. You think you can have me, sweetie? A few days or a week later, we took a Greyhound to New York City, arriving in early afternoon, strolling briskly through lower Manhattan, a kind of dancing walk needed to navigate the pulse and push of pedestrian traffic. We took in the minimal yet colorful palette of the post-psychedelic store, Liquid Sky, full of raver gear and techno records. We posed for a picture in front of an ATM, asking a passerby to snap it, Paisley's mouth open in perhaps a put-on excitement as she laid her head on my chest, me trying conversely to contain my glee at being with her in New York City, a restrained grin on my face, my cheeks scarlet. Thugs shouldn't blush, I thought. We returned to Philly and snuck into our parents' finished basement. I remember a dimly lit, immaculately clean place, but nerves had kept me awake the previous night, and as we made out on the couch, the fatigue began to catch up with me. Chapter 9, Section 4, Upper Darby, 1997. The first time he took LSD was at an all-ages rave outside Baltimore, drenched in kaleidoscope lights, beats pulsing like heartbeats. The drug didn't fully hit during the rave, despite the hypnotic rhythms and magnetism of strangers' unified movements. It wasn't until the drive back home that everything began to fracture and reassemble miraculously. He was in the driver's seat. You would think we would say he was driving, but the car was driving itself, and he was just part of the car, slicing along the empty pre-dawn 95 North Highway. Cypress Hills, bass-heavy beats perfectly syncing with the lines of the road, as if all of it was choreographed. Philadelphia Half-Life by the Roots followed, every note striking impossibly perfect, the lyrics unraveling secrets you felt you'd always known, but couldn't articulate before. He later said it was as if he was of the car, a cog in its machinery, seamlessly in its pistons and gears. Time changed as the lights of the oncoming traffic painted glowing trails that lingered echoing. By the time they reached Upper Darby, the edges of reality had softened, and the perspective felt both infinite and vulnerable. He didn't sleep that night, though he couldn't explain why. The second time he dropped acid, he was home outside Philly. He and Matt watched Seven, twice, the second viewing an uncanny echo of the first, but marked with new insights and revelations that seemingly rippled right out of the screen. The film's dark themes seemed to resonate in a strange harmony with his mind state, its neon bright edges highlighting the movie's grim aesthetic like paint-drenched shadows. As dawn broke, he stood staring out the window at a sunrise he whispered was broken. The light was pale, washed out, as if it was all in low resolution, every detail only hazily beautiful. It reminded him of a Ween lyric, "The sun is up, and I'm all washed out." Beauty in the mundane, but also the emptiness there. He was struck by his calm, given his previous experiences with some panic triggered by cannabis. While weed had occasionally bugged him out, LSD seemed to sharpen his mind as it rearranged it. He had drank orange juice because urban legend had it that it enhanced trips, and in the stillness of the morning he seemed to be digesting his strange serenity. But was it serenity, or just a calm before something else? Between the ages of 19 and 22, he only took LSD a handful of times, but those experiences shattered his worldview in ways he has said he has never recovered from. The fantasies and facades of reality, constructed so neatly and predictably, crumbled like plaster. For years afterward, it was as though he lived among glimmering shards, everything broken but endlessly reflective. He found beautiful sorrow in those fragments, as if each piece contained other universes, but they no longer fit together coherently. His writing changed too, now strange, luminous, its imagery and insights often alien even to him. He realized he'd maybe just traded sets of illusions, discovering later the idea that the truth might not be uncovered with merely a single layer peeled away, as there were so many things he did not know that he did not know. Chapter 9, Section 5, Philly, PA, 1996. He and Dan Coe strolled toward South Street one humid afternoon. The city buzzed around them, passing cars and distant voices and ambient hum. Eli, given the deep, even uncomfortable questions, turned to Dan, voice curious yet serious. "If you have ever even considered selling your soul, isn't that enough to make it so?" Dan shot him a glance, half annoyed, half intrigued. Dan had grown up attending a strict Korean born-again Christian church where questions like this were dangerous taboos. Eli had been raised nominally Christian, with the only routine attendance occurring briefly in 11th grade at a leftist activist Methodist congregation in West Philly. His dad, Paul, had shed the rigid fundamentalism of his upbringing, leaving Eli with a patchwork faith that included both skepticism and a deep intuition about larger forces. As soon as he asked the question, a sudden clap of thunder startled them. The wind whipped through the streets and rain began to pour in sheets, drenching them quickly. The world transformed, the heat of the day replaced with an electric chaos. They ran for cover, darting into the first storefront they could find, a small New Orleans-themed cafe. As they stepped inside, dripping and breathless, he froze. The wallpaper was covered in a repeating pattern of cartoon devils, their grinning faces mocking the irony. Dan let out a nervous laugh. Well, that's not unsettling at all. He scanned the room, gut tightening. He believed and didn't believe, a tension following him his entire life. His subconscious, however, believed entirely, and moments like these only reinforced that belief. He said nothing, but his mind churned. Months later, he and a group of friends, including Dan, found themselves playing with a Ouija board late at night on the middle school field. It was supposed to be just another joking act of rebellion, but the energy felt strange quickly. The planchette moved too easily, spelling out cryptic answers, leaving them uneasy. And then it happened. Another freak thunderstorm rolled in, sending them scrambling. The wind howled through the field, whipping the board away and leaving them drenched. He felt a pang of guilt. Experiences like these shaped his complicated beliefs. Consciously, he dismissed them as coincidence. Subconsciously, he believed wholeheartedly. Over time, he began to suspect that he had, in fact, entered into some kind of pact, at least symbolically. The easy developed with women, coupled with a deliberate amoral attitude during this wild period, felt like confirmation. It was as if something had granted him powers, but at a cost. What could this cost be?